Hello again from Greenberg. We are still celebrating the African diaspora experience with living narratives from the town of Greenberg. I am Tina Harper, Recreation Leader for the Department of Community Resources, and our guest today is Mr. James Robinson, former Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Community Resources and longtime Greenberg resident. How are you today, James?
I'm doing wonderful, Tina. How are you doing?
Quite well. Thank you for asking. So we'll get started. Just let us know, what was it like growing up as a young Black male here in Greenberg?
Sure. So, as Tina mentioned, James Robinson, born and raised in Greenberg, and I'm not afraid to tell you that I was born in 1958. So I'm just knocking on the door of 64. And
You
growing up
don't look
in
at
Green,
James, so it's
oh,
okay.
thanks. So it's green. Actually, growing up in Greenberg was a wonderful experience for myself and my family. Um, it was a very diverse community. The schools that I went to, all Greenberg schools, R.J. Bailey, Webb, Woodlands High School, all was very diverse. So it was a very nice place to grow up. Some of my high school friends I'm very, very close with now because of growing up in Greenberg and enjoying my childhood.
When did you become aware of your race growing up in Greenberg? When did you become aware that you were African American?
That's a great question, and I would have to say in 1968. Um, that's the year that Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated, and there was an uproar in Greenberg at the high school. There was a lot of riots. A couple of stores got burned down, and that's when we realized that we are Black men and women in Greenberg, and but it seems that we came through it, and a couple of years later, and it worked out pretty good. But 68, I would say, was the year. I was 10 years old at the time. I have older siblings that went to Woodlands High School at the time. My brother and two of my brothers and my sister. So I wasn't there to see all the rioting, but I was quite aware of it.
Did you see that your peers who were not African American experienced that entire period differently? Because I'm sure it was, you know, the entire town must have been impacted by what was going on. Did you feel
Yeah,
as though you experienced those things differently than your non-African American counterparts?
I did. And I also, my family was one of the first families to move into the housing authority in Greenberg. So where we lived was very African American, and Parkway Garden was mixed, Parkway Gardens area, and then there was Hartsdale where it was very non-African American. So where it was split, there was a divide line, and I would have to say the community center at the time is where me and a lot of my friends went to for comfort.
So how did those experiences impact what you pursued in terms of your extracurricular activities, in terms of your involvement in the things that were going on at that time, and then eventually in the career paths that you chose?
Yeah, well, again, I was 10 years old in 68. But it did impact me. And I think as I got older, the community center was our safe haven. Our parents allowed us to go to the community center. There's a lot of activities there for us. But when we were in school, as I got older and went to high school, a lot of my friends were non-African American, and a lot of them was African American, and it was very diverse, and we got along very well. But I have to say that community center played a big role in the upbringing of a lot of African Americans in the community. Part of the reason the community center was run at the time by Ted Young, Theodore Young, who the building is named after, and there was quite a few African American males that was in charge at the community center, and so we really went to them for advice. They were very involved in the school activities. If something happened at the school, Mr. Young and Mr. Jones and Donald Brown, they would hesitate to come to the school to intervene with what was going on, and vice versa. If we were not doing what we were supposed to be doing at the school in high school, the school would call our parents and Ted Young. So, and we were afraid that if they found out, again, we would not be able to use the facilities and we'd be in a lot of trouble. So the school and the community center worked hand in hand together to raise a lot of young men and women in Greenberg.
Mm. It sounds like you had a lot of role models come out of the Department of Community Resources. Can you
Absolutely.
think of one particular experience with one of those males or a different male who was really serving as a role model to all of you at that time that changed the trajectory, per se, of your life?
Yeah, I would have to say Theodore D. Young, Mr. Young. He kind of like adopted me as a stepchild, and I spent a lot of time with him and his wife. And my mother and father was in the house, and I was still able to spend a lot of time with Mr. Young and his wife. Even gone on vacations with family vacations with them. At the time, they didn't have any children, so they adopted other children in the community. So some of the trips that we went on was really opened up my eyes to other areas other than Greenberg,
Mm.
and it helped me out for my future.
So in some of those other places, how would you compare race relations here in our town of Greenberg, which is extremely diverse, to some of the other places that you visited in that time of your life?
Well, first, it wasn't that diverse.
Mm.
Uh, I think an example was he took me to Cape Cod once, and it wasn't very diverse. You know, but we had a wonderful time. Enjoyed ourselves, and it gave me an opportunity to get out of Greenberg and see how other people lived in other areas. And it was okay. It was a good experience.
So James, how would you say race relations in Greenberg, how did you experience them change from the time you were a teenager until the time that you became an adult living here?
In '68, there was a lot of rioting going on, and Black folk were very angry, not just because of Dr. Martin Luther King's assassination, but just what was going on in the country, in the world. And slowly, we just seen a change. I seen more African American teachers being hired up at the high school. We were having more people working in the community that look like us and accepting us. And I don't know how Woodlands did it, but it became a place that was very comfortable being around other races. Like I said, a lot of my friends were not African American, and to this day, I was really fortunate in the class that I grew up in, because to this day, um, we have a group chat with about 20 of my classmates, and it's very, very diverse. And it's from Woodlands High School many years ago. So it was a wonderful place to grow up. And because of Woodlands, we saw the diversity and remained friends, and we still talk on a regular basis. I would almost say on a daily basis to some of my
Wow.
friends from high school.
That's excellent. I am as impressed that you guys are still in touch, especially across ethnicities, as I am that you're in a group chat. That's highly impressive. I'm still trying to figure that one out
Yeah,
myself.
it's a really, I'll tell you, and we realize that it's a really special group. We meet, we don't have a high school reunion. We have a reunion in June every year. And my classmates from around the country come back, and all we do is meet for the weekend and go hang out at a bar, have a couple of drinks, reminisce. And our classmates come from around the country for that one weekend just to hang out and get together, because we're still so good friends.
As the parent of young Black men and women living in today's world,
Mm-hmm.
what challenges do you see that they face as African Americans, and how does their experience differ from yours when you were their age?
Well, for I have three children. I have a daughter that's 28 years old, and I have twins, boy, a girl and a boy. The girl's old. I have to say it that way. The girl and a boy that are 26 years old, and it's not easy raising children in this world, in this country, in this town these days. As much as things changed, a lot of things have stayed the same. We've seen all the Black Lives Matters this summer, last summer, and what's going on with especially Black males. So it's very difficult. I have a very difficult time, worrisome time, raising a Black male in Greenberg. Fortunately, he was raised in Greenberg, where we didn't have a lot of the problems that they have in a lot around the country. but it's a very scary time to raise children in this world.
It almost sounds like you feel it might have been harder for them in today's world than it was for you, even in spite of civil rights and the rioting, that the relationships here in Greenberg allowed you to stay grounded at that time. Whereas it sounds to me like you're saying that your children maybe face even more peril because of where race relations are in the world today.
Yeah, absolutely. Just I don't want to say the things that I could get away with, but the things that I was able to do, the kids were not able to do these days because social media is a problem. I feel that social media is a big problem in this country. Um, Even though there was drugs when I grew up, I think drugs is a bigger problem these days. Politics is huge. So I think the children today have a harder time in society than we did when we were growing up.
So let's go back. Let's go back a few generations. Did your father or your grandfather or your mother or your grandmother ever share any of their experiences growing up as Black men and women in the time before you?
Yes, my father, more so than my mother, they were married for 50 something years before my mother passed away. Then my father passed away due to complications with COVID a year and a half ago. But it was more my father sharing because he was a World War II veteran. So we heard a lot of stories of what he had to go through growing up. They both came from the South uh, to Greenberg, and my father went into the Army when he was 17 years old. And when he came back, he wasn't really welcomed back like we thought he would be. And when he was in the Army, he ran into a lot of difficulties with biases and things. So we heard a lot of stories from him, what he had to go through and not being able to go certain places or go to certain restaurants. And so we heard a lot of that from him. And but he lived through it. He did a wonderful job, and he raised 7 children. So it was very difficult, but he managed to do well.
How do you think his experiences as a war veteran, as a Black American patriot and war veteran, impacted how he raised you and your siblings?
You would think that he would be, because of the army and what he's seen, what he went through, they would be pretty firm and strict, but he wasn't. He was a kind and gentle father. When he came home, he worked at General Motors for 30, I think 35 years, and he worked the night shift, so we didn't see him a lot in the evenings. But when he ever had an opportunity, he would spend a lot of time with us. And my mother would be home. She was really a homemaker, and she would watch us during the day and make sure we were okay. So growing up with a father from the Army and World War II veteran actually was really a lot of fun to hear the stories that he could tell us, and how he was raised.
Did he
His
ever?
parents, yeah, his parents passed away when he was a teenager.
Oh,
So
wow.
he had to grow up, and he came to New York. But he came to New York, and then he went off to the Army.
Did he ever express to you what he felt your role should be as an African American male living in society?
I would say it wasn't so much my father, but it was the other African American men in the community that I watched and that mentored me, and some of the ones that I named previously. I think it came more so from them than it did my father. But what was good about the Greenberg community, there was a lot of role models. As I said, I grew up in the housing authority, and the myth is that a lot of single parents raise their children in the housing authority. Well, back then, in order to get an apartment in the housing authority, you had to be married. So I grew up seeing a lot of mothers and fathers in the house, in the household. So that's a lot of role models in the household. So it was fortunate that they had that rule back then, because we would see moms and dads in the household, and then we would go and have other mentors in the community.
That's incredible. I
Yeah.
think in particular, as Black males in the community, Black fathers have been very strong here. And I know that you led a group, I believe, FACT, was it Fathers
Mm-hmm.
and Children Together?
Yes, correct.
So what would you say has been really the ongoing role from your father until today of Black fathers here in the town of Greenburgh?
Well, back when I started back, it was really because I wanted the society, the town, to know that African American men were in the household and they did raise their children. So FACT really stands for, the acronym is FACT, but it's as fathers and children together. So it was a group of African American men, and we would take our boys and our girls and do activities with them on a monthly basis, you know, to get that myth out of people's mind that fathers weren't involved in their children's life. So that was a very impactful organization that we had, and we still have it a little bit, but all most of our kids have outgrown it. But it was 12 years of a wonderful experience for the fathers and the children, and it gave moms the opportunity to relax at home while the fathers took the children out and did some positive activities.
That sounds great. That sounds like a great organization.
As a mother, I'm sure you would say that.
Very appreciative. So we're really, the living narratives are our way of keeping the oral tradition alive. So if you go back to even your father's stories or any of your mother's stories, what is something from their era in Greenburgh that you want to pass on to our youth today so that they don't forget it, so that it continues to drive and motivate their involvement and struggle and process and change?
I would say being involved in your children's life, I think is very important that parents, mothers and dads support their children and be actively involved in their life, whether they're basketball players or going to a piano, it doesn't matter. But it's just very important that we teach our children to be involved in their future children's lives. And that would be it for me, just to stay involved in your children's lives, support them.
And what about their role or your father's role in the civic engagement that has always been present in this community?
Yeah, for me, volunteerism and giving back is very important. As we speak, I'm a fire commissioner. I'm also on the housing authority, a commission for the housing authority. And because I want to give back. And I think it's very important that we all find a way to give back. It doesn't have to be a commissioner. It could be a volunteer at the community center or a volunteer at the hospital. But it's very important that we teach our children to reach out and give back.
When you were a young boy back in 1968, after Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated, what do you remember Ted Young and the other Black male mentors that you had doing to inspire your civic engagement?
Well, number one, opening the doors for us at the community center. Again, so we know we had a place that we can go, but at the same time, disciplining us, letting us know that when the doors are not open for you just to come in, there's some things that you have to do before you can come into this community center door. And it very well could be good grades, doing what you're supposed to be doing at home, not being crazy in the streets. So they made sure that if we're going to come to that facility, that we're coming to do something positive. And there was a lot of activities for us to do, whether it was we were in plays, we were playing basketball, we were in dance classes, we was in music classes. So there's a lot of activities that we could do that we could not find elsewhere. That's why we came to that place. And the positive role models, again, made a big difference.
Were they keeping you informed of the current events and the significance of those events?
They were, and I vaguely remember marches. I can remember Al Sharpton coming to the community center back then, and we marched. Well, I forgot the name of the supermarket, but we marched up to the supermarket from the community center, and to. And I think that was like maybe in '69. I'm not sure, maybe '70. But the community center very active in activism in the town of Greenburgh.
Last question. Do you see that same level of activism that you got to witness in the '60s? Do you see that today?
I don't. And it's unfortunate, but times have changed. The town has changed. People has changed. People have moved on. And we've had some great, great activists in the community. I'll just name a few: Harry Lawson, Cora Carey, Ted Young, um, Johnny Jones. And I think part of the problem, and I include myself in this conversation, part of the problem, we did not teach our children how to be activists. And because we didn't do a job teaching them, we're losing that in the community.
I trust that you can bring it back. You can get us our young people back on the good foot here in Greenburgh. James, it's been a pleasure. Is there anything else you wanted to share? Last messages, words to inspire that new generation to continue to be involved in their community and the changes that we make here?
Well, I would just say to do again, reach out and give back. And men and young boys, young girls, men and women, it's your community, and you have to help someone. So reach back and help someone out in your community. And again, it could be taking them to lunch and having a conversation with them, or taking them to a baseball game and have a conversation. Buying a family a Christmas gift or whatever, but find a way to give back to your community because it's very important.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Ms. Harper.
Continue watching, and thank you for sharing your experience. Okay. We were happy to have you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, thank you for joining us again for another living narrative here from Greenburgh. Help us to continue celebrating the experiences from people of the African diaspora. We hope to see you again soon.